Beverly Zeimet Show. Discovering you. Rewiring the brain. Rebuilding confidence. And harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zeimet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zeimet Show, where being that best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is Jennifer Jerald, calling in from someplace on West Coast. And where would that someplace be?
Spokane, Washington.
Oh, Spokane, Washington. I've been there. I kind of like it over there. I know. Yeah, there's a lot of places that, I haven't been. And I want to welcome you to the show. It's a pleasure having you here. I know we connected a while back,
My guest today is Jennifer Jerald.
Was it through Manny or was it from Facebook?
It was through the Forbes Riley interview.
Oh, the Forbes Riley. Okay. I mean, there's so much going on so fast with
I've been there.
with everything in 2020. So
there's a lot of
unpredictable and
places that,
upside down. I have met some of the most wonderful people. It's just it's such an honor to have a show during this time.
I want to welcome
because of everybody that I'm
meeting
meeting
and
and the doors that are opening, So
Jerald.
out of chaos,
It was
a lot of times
the
comes
Forbes Riley interview.
So when
there's
flow
so
with it
much
instead
going
of
on,
fear with it,
so
fast,
fast,
magical things can happen.
everything.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Wonderful that
Chaos
comes
often
down.
brings
I
the
have
calm.
met some of the yeah, that's true. Yep, C for C.
We have to
Chaos
see,
for
we have
calm.
to see the storm. We have to be a part of the storm,
because of everybody
and then we get to enjoy the calm after the storm. It's the cycle of life.
Out of chaos. That's a good way to put it because it is. You take care of things that you have an opportunity to change. Things that you can change, and the things that you can't.
Yes,
You surrender.
absolutely. I couldn't agree
And
more.
then you see what you
Chaos
can do to make
often
them
brings
work
the
for
calm.
you instead of against you. That's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see,
That's one of the steps of my 5-step program. We have to surrender.
Shut
And
up!
then we get to enjoy the calm after the
There's a
storm.
few
And
things to do
it's
before that,
cycle of life.
but yes, surrendering and just
that's a good way to
sometimes
put it
just
because
taking
it
that
is,
deep cleansing breath and saying,
take care of things that you
whatever shall be, shall be. This too shall pass.
Things that you
Oh,
can't
wow.
And I will,
Things that
and
you
I
say the
will
same thing
rise
I
better.
do.
I will rise better because of it. So,
Yep, it's a phoenix rising up out of the
That's
ashes.
true.
that's right. The Phoenix is my spirit animal,
5-step program.
my avatar, and on the cover of my books.
Funny that you would mention the Phoenix.
Funny I would
There's a
mention
few
the
things
Phoenix.
to
This
do
is so
before
cool.
that, but-
I love it,
and
with things just kind of flow. You don't really don't know anything about the other person, other than that, hey, you met, but you really haven't had a conversation. So, being on the show with a lot of speakers and authors and just wonderful people, entrepreneurs.
That's right. The Phoenix is
Getting
my
to know
spirit
them.
animal.
And as the conversation flows, it just picks up on what their energy is because it's their passion. And it just kind of comes out and it's wow. So knowing, not knowing these things and then they show up or, I love the way spirit works in that avenue, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. The spirit work of 2020 has been, look at our backgrounds, out of this world. It's been so fantastic. This year has been just a year of reinvention for myself and for my family.
Right.
It has really just, I've wanted to do a career change for a really long time. And for 3 years, I've had doctors saying, you got to quit doing what you were doing. And I was like, but it's all that I have. And I don't have anything to go to. And I got to take care of my family. And I had all this fear.
Oh,
I had all this fear. In fact, I've spent the majority of my life in a pretty constant state of some form of fear. And then I went, wait a second, I have so much much experience with fear. I think I shall turn it into a career and teach others how to take that fear and turn it into focus. And so that's what this year has been, because in March, the business that I had been running for 15 years was shut down, boom, on a dime. I just spent hundreds of dollars on supplies, and 4 hours later, our governor said, nay, you don't get to play. It's only for 2 weeks. 9 months later, here we are. So it was like, what? And I went through this really dark spin out. And I was so sad and I was so depressed. And, you know, I wasn't even a drinker, and I started drinking because they make it look really cool in the movies. You know, like if you're sad or you've had a hard day, you come home and have a glass of wine. And I realized I wasn't just having a glass of wine. I was drinking bottles of wine. And I was like, well, this isn't working out very well. I'm not being very productive. I just published a book.
Right.
About rising from the ashes. Okay, crash and burn, we're rising up. And I got rid of the alcohol and started the reinvention process. And it has been phenomenal, because I've met so many incredible human beings with a passion for lifting and living and loving and giving. And so it's like, I remember typing an email to somebody saying, I'm just working on moving forward, but it auto-corrected to living. And I looked at it and I went, I'm leaving it. And that's been my signature ever since. So I have a podcast, Dare to Heal by Living Forward. And that's just been my thing now, is just, do we let it stop us dead in our tracks? Or do we stand up and live in spite of all the things that we don't have control over?
Right.
We control ourselves.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I know a lot of our listeners out here can totally relate to that. And, you know, so sometimes what we need to do when we're going through some major changes, because of the uncertainty, you know, we've lived in a predictable world. Whether it was miserably predictable, it was still predictable, right? And that comfort zone. And all of a sudden, like you said, pow! Everybody was thrown out of that comfort zone. It wasn't just you, it was the world, right? You know, and a couple weeks, right? Like you say, 9 months later, here we are. So thank you so much for sharing that story, because it rings true to a greater majority of people out there. But to be able to be that little phoenix and again, take your own medicine, and sometimes it doesn't taste very good, right? Like, oh, geez, this doesn't taste good at all. What the heck am I doing here, right? But again, that's part of your awakening. That's part of your learning curve. That's part of how you can be an expression to others and put hope in their life. Hey, if I can do it, you can do it. But to share that, because a lot of people are embarrassed with that. And when you look at the stats of everything that's going on here in the last 9 months, you know, turning to alcohol has been, like you said, oh, well, they make it look so nice and easy and comfortable in the movies, right?
It's just gonna calm you, and it's just gonna soothe you, and you're just gonna feel so much better. But really, it numbs you. It really dumbs you down, and you're just in a state of not being able to function.
Right.
And to progress or to focus. I mean, there's zero focus when you're drinking. So, you feel a little tingly. Yeah. You feel a little tingly. You get all, like, I would go, oh, I can't feel my face.
Yeah, especially with wine.
And I would smack my cheeks and I go, my lips are numb. And I thought, people like this? And it was really surprising to me. And I'm not judging anybody who does love that feeling or who does love to drink. But for me, it was a huge wake up call.
Right.
And you mentioned, it's an awakening. And it's interesting that you say that, because the foreword of my book is actually a journal entry from when I came out of the hospital after a suicide attempt back in 2015, because I had hit the rock bottom and I didn't think I belonged in this world. And I tried to take my life and found myself in the psych ER. And that poem, or that journal, not poem, but that journal entry is actually called The Awakening.
Okay.
And so it's just
I just got chills all over my body.
Because it was that moment where I got to just I remember sitting in the ER in this area, and it was like a prison cell. It was, 4 dingy white walls with a dingy hospital floor. There was a thing they called a bed with a plastic mattress that didn't have any sheets or anything. There was a tiny little button with an intercom on the wall and this big heavy metal door with a teeny tiny slat window. And I felt like I was in prison. I was in a place where they said it was for my own good and where I would be safe. But I felt trapped and I felt scared. And I remember I wouldn't sit down. I was just filled with anger. I was so mad that I was still alive. Because I really
Wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be here. Am I here? Is this
right? Like I was like, wait a second. I mean, it was a fail-proof plan. I had locked myself in my van. It was 100 degrees outside. I had all the windows rolled up. I didn't have any air on or anything. And I was like, 20 minutes and this will be done. I was quite a bit heavier than I am now at that time. So I've kind of joked and said, well, if you're overweight, that's not a good way to go. Far too much water retention. It will sustain you for a long time. So it didn't happen. Obviously, the universe had a better plan for me. I know.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my God.
It's
Too
true.
much water retention. That's good. That was good.
I mean, you might want to pick a different plan because this dropped for 2.5 hours. I was like sitting in a sauna. I was a little bit sweaty. I was a little bit groggy, and I was a lot mad because I was like, what am I still doing here? But it was really just one of those moments where it's like I didn't really want to die. I wanted the pain to stop. I wanted the hurting to stop. I wanted that spin to stop. I wanted the feeling of being trapped inside of myself to stop. And I didn't have an answer for that. And I was going through a divorce and trying to retain custody of my 2 children. And it was a lot. And I had a lot of really limiting beliefs that had been fed into me throughout my life that were telling me the world would be better off without me. And that really fed that desire to just disappear,
Right.
to turn into a memory, if you will.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jennifer, because, you can feel it's coming from your heart, and this is truth. And so many people in the world, doesn't matter what nation they're from, it doesn't matter race, creed, anything. It's the human element and where the mind can take us. And we reach that point, and to share it in the manner in which you're sharing that truth can ring home. And, so the message, it's like, how do you become that better you? That's what this show theme is all about, right? How do you become that better you? And sometimes we do have to hit that rock bottom. Mm-hmm. My story is a little bit similar to yours, where, when I took my journey, I went out to figure out how I was going to make it so that I could get off this planet, right? Because of everything that had transpired. But, in anger, you spoke anger. That was my saving grace, was the anger, right? Because I went out and I gave God a piece of my mind. But moving, oh, let me tell you, I had a good mouth too, I tell you, yeah. But I'm walking down gravel roads, kicking and screaming and yelling and just, again, it's playing that victim role.
Yeah.
But we have to recognize that victim, right? And why we have created that story to create us a victim, right? And then it's our responsibility to get out of that prison. But that anger, it's when you can begin to really release that anger, like what you were saying. You were angry, you were still here, you were angry for, all of these things. I don't want the pain anymore. And these are relatable things. And then the reality sets in, because I had 3 little ones that were under the age of 5. And after I was totally exhausted, I think probably an hour just really cutting loose, yeah. I couldn't even cry anymore, right? I couldn't even talk anymore. My throat was so raw, and I was just exhausted. And of course, when you're angry, your walking turns into fast walking. I don't know how many miles I walked that night, right? But again, it's like I heard this voice. I had an intuitiveness all of my life as a child, And I listened to that voice, and I hadn't been listening to it for about 4 years when things started to snowball in the wrong direction because I wasn't where I wanted to be. And then when the voice says, "Are you done?" And it's like, yeah, I was exhausted. It's like, yeah, so what? What do you got to say about everything I just like, right? And then the voice said, "Well, who's going to take care of your kids if you're not here?" Boom! Reality check. And again, you mentioned, you had 2 children you were looking to get custody for, and if that's a battle, that could even make it worse, So, I get that. And a lot of our viewers here also get that, and so it's like, oh my gosh, I hear my dad. The one I had that most anger towards was my father. And whose voice do I hear first? My dad. And he says, if you're going to have these kids, you're going to have to take care of them. Because your mom and I aren't going to. We have enough of our own. I'm second oldest of 11 kids. Well, that's a fact, right? It's like...
I'm third of 11.
So you get that one, right? And it's like, okay. So it's like, if I got to hang around, they're all under the age of 5. That's a long time. So it's like, okay, let's make a deal time here, right? I want out of this dead-end marriage. I want this. I had a list. I had this massive list. And I said, so there, what do you got to say about that? Okay. The voice says, okay.
Okay.
Like, what
Get
the
started.
heck does that
Get
mean, right? It's like, okay, so what am I supposed to do here, right? And then it was the mind over matter thing. Well, I'm telling you, in 1974, in the middle of farm country, Iowa, who says mind over matter? What does that even mean? I didn't even know the word psychic or intuitive or none of that, right? And it's like, what does that mean? And then the voices says, start living your life for you and your kids. Oh, well, that's a piece of cake because I was kind of already on that path. And so I just set forth and I really, really, really started paying attention to that inner speaking, right? And started getting my act together. It's like, if I don't get my act together, how am I going to take care of these kids? And so that was my journey, and to be able to do that. So, and again, if I hadn't gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be here in the capacity that I am. If you hadn't gone through what you did, you wouldn't be here in the capacity that you did. And it's funny that you said you're going to take this fear and you're going to turn it into focus.
Yes.
Right? And several years ago, I put together a book. I called it The Fear Factor. Right? And it was something that people didn't really talk about a lot back then with the fear, because they didn't want to, it's like, oh, you have to focus on positive things and everything. Well, yes and no. But if you don't take a look at it, you deny yourself those emotions, you're not doing yourself or anyone else a favor. So sharing the story that you shared here today is really special because it helped you move to where you are today. So let's talk a little bit about your book. Talk about those 5 steps, because it's interesting. You got 5 steps to move through, and I got 5 steps to move through. Let's kind of throw it back and forth and see where we are probably on the same track,
okay,
to get to the same outcome.
Well, there's 4 steps in the book specifically. The book is called Dare to Heal. May I show it?
Well, of course.
My book is called Dare to Heal, and love the ring light here. It's Dare to Heal, Thriving with BPD.
And where can they get that book if they want it?
They can get that book on my website at jenniferjerald.com.
Okay.
Or they can just go straight to Amazon. It's on both, but jenniferjerald.com has a link to both my books. But this is my first book and my first love. This is my story. And for those that are listening or watching, BPD on the title of this book stands for borderline personality disorder. Not bipolar, which is what a lot of people think that is when they first see it. So borderline personality disorder is what I was diagnosed with back in 2015.
Okay.
And I was in my early 40s at that point. Yep, I gave it away. Don't I look fabulous? I'm just kidding. But I imagine, yes, thank you. Imagine going through your whole life with a diagnosis that was being misdiagnosed. And every time I'd go see a doctor, I'd go see a counselor, they'd put me on medication or they would do something to help me, but I wasn't being diagnosed properly. And so I just kept saying, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. And I was so angry, which, by the way, I have learned in my life that anger is the cover up for fear.
Well, yes, it is. It's
So
suppressive.
it's my first go-to emotion. Get out of the way. So I got this diagnosis, and then I ended up having to go through a program. It was my choice. It was my ticket out of the ER, actually.
Right.
My to not go get checked into the upstairs suites at the hospital at $3,000 a night without a pillow. I was like, oh, after listening to everything around me, I was like, there's some people that probably need a room more than I do. So I can do this. But in order to get out of there, I had to sign this agreement that I was going to go into a program called DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy. And so it was an 18-month long program. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a divorce. I got to make a living. But I got to get out of here. That was more important than anything else, was getting out of that hospital. And so I signed this course program and I started it. And I actually, I guess I'm a little bit of an overachiever, because I actually finished the 18-month program in 12.
Well, see, there you go.
I got things to do. So, but I really just adapted it. And so people asked me along the way, as they watched me go from this burning pile of emotional rubble to the person I am today. And even 5 years ago, I mean, I've grown even more in the last 5 years, because I wrote my book 5 years ago, but I didn't publish it till this year because of fear. So, see, I told you I turned fear into a career, and now I help others get over that. So I went through this whole program, and somebody asked several of my clients were saying, how did you get where you are today from where you were? And I said, well, that's a good question. And so I really thought about that. And so that's where the acronym in my book is Dare to Heal. HEAL is actually an acronym. So I'll cover that really quickly, and then we'll cover the 5 steps that were birthed from that. So the heal, the H is to be willing to help yourself. In order to get better, you have to acknowledge first that you've got an issue that you need to work on.
Yep.
Whether
Houston's got a problem, right?
Houston's got a problem. Now, if Houston can't admit that Houston has a problem, then there are no diagnostics or treatments that are going to help. Whether you have a leaky faucet in your house and you're not willing to call a plumber, or you've got a leaky belief system that's destroying you from the inside out and you're not willing to call for help, either way, you're done. You're doomed. So you got to be willing to help yourself.
Great analogy.
And then the E is to be willing to engage in the process. Once you acknowledge there's a problem, you can't just sit back and let Bookface and YouTube and Snapchat and all these other things do the work.
Right.
You can certainly watch self-help videos or listen to self-help books. Mine, I guess, is in the personal development section. There's options out there, but just reading or watching doesn't change anything. You have to get busy. You got to get in there and get your hands dirty.
Well, okay, knowledge or information without action isn't worth a dime, right?
No, it's just words on a page that are stuck in your brain and doing nothing.
Exactly.
So you have to be willing to get into the process. Roll your sleeves up, get your feet and get your hands, get your head, get some smudge on your cheeks and go for it, right?
Yes.
So engage in the process. And then A is one of my favorite chapters, and that's to arm yourself with the tools and knowledge you need, because not every problem for Houston is identical.
Exactly.
Right? So mine is borderline personality disorder. Somebody else may have something else that they're dealing with: depression, anxiety, sleep problems. Maybe they're in a bad marriage. Maybe they're in a crappy job and they're feeling like they're at a dead end. In order to get out of whatever you're in, that's the problem, you got to have the right tools.
Exactly. That
Right?
is definitely
If I'm stuck in a snowbank, I better have chains and some sand and a shovel. If I'm stuck in a mud bank, I better have some chains and a shovel and a big old tow truck. You got to have the right tools. If If you're building a kitchen, you're not going to use the same tools necessarily as you would if you're fixing a car.
Exactly. So go back to that analogy that you made under the H, right? It's
Yes.
like if you have a leaky faucet, you're not going to call an electrician.
Correct. If you have a problem with your heart, you're not going to call a foot doctor. So,
Duh.
so you have to arm yourself with the tools and the knowledge that you
Right.
need to L, which is live your best life. And I talk about the fact that I am a mental illness survivor turned thriver, because so many of us are walking through life in a state of survival.
Right.
We aren't truly living. We're getting up, doing the grind, paying the bills, and then we go to bed and we start all over. And we get focused on the mundane and forget about the magic. And so the joy of living your best life is huge. It's one of my favorite chapters, because I didn't even know what living was until I was able to unclog that psychological brain and drain and go, whoa, I've missed so much.
Yeah, that's so true, and thank you for sharing that, because again, when we get so caught up in all of the destructions and the fear, you've got two emotions, fear and love, and look where we are today in 2020. It's a worldwide spread fear. That again, when you've got a lot of synergism with that, you got a lot of minds that are jumping into the fear, so that ripple effect that goes out even intensifies it that much more.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So when you're looking at how energy moves, because energy just flows, right? And so you're being bombarded, and we were being bombarded crazy before. Now it's even crazier the way it is.
Well, and we have to really look too. It's like you talked about that ripple effect. We have a choice of which kind of stone to throw into the river.
That's exactly right.
So are we going to spread the ripple effect of fear, or are we going to spread the ripple effect of love? And I've recently just referred to 2020 as a bareback bull ride.
Oh, I like that.
Right? It has been a bareback bull ride. You don't know which way that sucker's going to buck, and you got nothing to hang on to, right? Except it's a bull. So you do have something to hang on to.
Right.
And that's the horns. You grab that bull by the horns, and no matter which way he flips or flows or tries to get rid of you, you hang on and you just smack him on a fanny and say, giddy up, because I got things to do. I got places to go. And if I'm riding you, people are going to get out of my way. So
well, that's a fact. That's right. They will get out of your way.
If you're going to get a lot farther on a bull bareback, hold on to the horns, people are going to get out of your way. They're like, don't mess with her. You ride in on a little, like you got your little donkey or your pig. You're not going to, and that was not a political reference by any means. I said donkey. I'm like, oh crap, that could be political. I'm not being political. But you got to, no matter what comes at you,
right.
We all have where everybody's going to take that. There's going to be an instant moment of, and you got to catch your breath. And that's where my 5-step program comes in. Take that fear that's sitting right in front of you and turn it into focus with 5 little steps. And I go into way more detail when you work with me one-on-one, but for the purpose of this, I do have just a quick description, and that is to focus. The F is check the facts. Mm-hmm. Check the facts. Remove the emotion, because emotion is just energy in motion, or otherwise it's a distraction. In other words, so if you take that fear and you stop right there and you just check the facts on it. What are the actual facts? There are a lot of people facing financial fear right now. Okay, so what are the facts? I lost my job. Some might be saying, I lost my job. My unemployment ended. I have a family to feed. I don't have a resume. There are things that could be causing that fear. But we got to, once we check the facts and we look at all those facts, we can say, okay, then what do I have control over? Right. And so then you go into the O, which is observe. After you've checked the facts, observe your body language. Observe the position of your body, the tension in your jaw, your shoulders, your back. What is your breathing pattern? What are the words that you're hearing in your mind or even audibly coming out of your mouth? I know in some of my dark places, I'll be like, everybody hates me. Nobody loves me. God hates me. I'm the butt of his jokes. I'm not meant to be successful. And it's this horrible spin out that I've spent a lot of my life in that place. And now
it's that unconscious brain chatter.
It's the brain chatter caused by a myriad of limiting beliefs that have come at you from parents, siblings, teachers, employers, friends, coworkers. Everybody has something to say.
Yes, they do.
And if we don't have a strong system built, it's really easy for an emotional virus to sneak in.
Yes.
And so the beauty of the 5-step focus is that even if an emotional virus snuck in, we have the power to dump the hard drive and upload a better one. And so after we've observed, then we change our mindset. And for years, I've heard that. And I'm like, what's that even mean?
Yeah, and here you are now teaching it. You know, it's so true, you know, because the mind is so powerful. You know?
The mind is powerful. We're all sitting in these little prisons and we're waiting for somebody to come with the key to get us out or the check to bail us out.
Yeah.
But the reality is the money and the keys for emotional prison lie within. And we don't have to wait for anybody to do that. And it sounds cliche, like you just have to make a choice. Because I was like, what? I don't have a choice about this. And I was in that victim spot that you mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
And it's like, so many of us easily just go, whoop, I'm a victim.
Oh yeah, it's very easy to play that poor little me, right?
Slump into our little pot of sinking sand of I'm so small and I just can't, and nobody will let me, and nobody will show me the way, and
nobody's gonna do it for me.
And why does my life have to be so hard all the time? and I think, okay, well, hold on a second. If we're not doing the work, like think of a bodybuilder, for example. They look fantastical, yeah? Like, I want to look like that. And then you find out that they're in the gym 6 hours a day. They eat so many hundreds of calories a day, and they don't eat pizza, and they don't, and you're like, maybe I don't want to look like that. And so really, is life hard? Yeah, life is hard. But if we didn't have struggle, we would never have strength. And the triumph at the top is just a stop along the way. It's not even the end.
Exactly.
And so once we've meditated, and I was like, meditate? What does that mean? Because these are all really big words, right? I see Indian monks in their temples like and
you know, that is such it's such a facade. Everybody thinks, oh, meditation, now I gotta just sit here and om. You know, I learned you just have to stop talking. That's right. It's that silence.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen to your own thoughts and what are they saying. And so you can do this pretty quickly, depending on your state of fear and the level of focus that you need. You might be able to do it really quickly with just 3 to 5 minutes. There's a lot of really wonderful apps out there for that. My favorite is Calm. It's wonderful. There's these beautiful views that you can choose from. There's guided meditation. There's specific meditations for work or for play or for coming down if you've had anxiety. I love that app. That's my fave. So I'll throw it out there. No, I don't get paid for that. I just love that one. So,
well, you know, what you're saying here is really relevant. And if you've ever done any kind of daydreaming, you know, that's a form of meditation. You know, if you're in prayer, that's a form of meditation. Anything that takes you out of the consciousness around you is a form of meditation. Right. And so it's not something you just have to sit there and ohm about. And a lot of times, again, you're breathing, that calm music, just moving yourself out of. And one of the things I like to share with my clients, when you get in that thinking brain and the thought patterns and all that starts working, when you think your thoughts, they can go in a lot of different directions. And a lot of times they spiral you this way. So, it's like, start talking out loud to yourself. Some people journal and they write, which is easier. But I promise you want the best laugh of your life is when you start speaking your thinking thoughts and then listening to those thinking thoughts, because when you speak them, they come across so different and foreign than when you're thinking them. It's like, you talk about your aha awakening moments, you'll get some of the best laughs of your life, and that just kind of lightens things up. They say laughter is the best medicine. And what have we done on this show?
We laugh, and that
exactly.
is perfect segue into the next step. So we've changed our mindset by doing a little meditation. You're talking about putting your words out there. Perfect, because the you is to upgrade your word choices.
There you go.
If what you were hearing or saying out loud, internally or audibly, was destructive and unproductive, turn it around.
Exactly.
Like, for example, because some people are like, well, how do you turn it? I mean, like, so maybe it's a first time listener and they're like, what, but what, how? So for example, you could be sitting in this little state of, poor me, I've just pulled up my little victim stool and I've got my little flag of surrender and I'm sitting in the corner and I'm feeling really sorry for myself because today was a really hard day. Oh my gosh, my washing machine died today. Oh, and then my vacuum died today and my steam mop died today. Oh my gosh, my internet's not working and my computer crashed and my cell phone's dying. And why does this always happen to me? And how come it's all at once? Okay.
I've heard some of those. I've heard some of those.
You're laughing, but literally, this was my life. Those were my life examples.
Yes.
Weeks ago. And 6 years ago, I would have been, why is this happening to me? Why is this all at once? And I had a couple moments because I'm still human. And I was like, for reals? I have so much to do. I have interviews and I have podcasts and I have all these. How can this happen right now? And I had my little moment where I pulled out my little chair and I pulled out my little flag of surrender and I was feeling all sorry for myself, like the universe hates me and nobody loves me.
Right.
And then I was like, whoa.
Okay, now that I had my pity party, reality
I'm gonna
check.
have petty party for one. Okay, because nobody else wanted to come and play with me. So it was like, well, this is no fun. So an example of how I turned that all around was just to go, okay, the washing machine was on a recall notice. You never called to take care of it because you couldn't see the numbers on the back because I'm all of 5'1". And so if you watched me do laundry, you'd laugh because I'm so short. I have to stand up on a stool or on the edge of my tub to try to get inside.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I'm 4'11 3/4.
Yes, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's like,
why do
okay.
you make these things so deep? You
and
gotta crawl in there to get it out.
And I just started to really look at the age of everything. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, the washing machine's almost 10 years old. The vacuum is several years old. And it goes through a lot because we have dogs.
Yeah.
And the steam mop is like 13 years old. And so I was like, these things are just gonna wear out. It just so happens they all decided to have a breakdown party together.
All at the same time.
They misunderstood the invitation for the break dance. They thought it said break down. But anyway, so it was really, really tough. So I stopped to check the facts, and then I looked at how I was feeling and the things that I was saying and was like, okay, you do have a lot to get done and you do have a lot to do, and you're not going to get anything done if you're spinning out. You're going to break down just like the washing machine did on the last spin cycle. Just and that's not okay because there's too much to do. Too many good things happening to let a couple bad things turn the whole thing upside down. And so it was like, okay, we're going to take care of these one at a time. We're going to call the warranty place for the washer. Then I went to the store and I got a new vacuum. I got a new steam mop. Little simple things. It was like, why was I freaking out so bad? Well, because we're human. And when they stack, it becomes an emotional game of Jenga, and you don't know when the next piece is going to tip the whole tower over. And so being able to catch it in the moment, and if you want to stay on your little stool in the corner, that's fine, but go through the process. FOCU, upgrade your word choices, turn it from a negative to a positive. Hey, I'm going to get a new part on my washing machine. I have a brand new vacuum. Look at that steam mop go. Turn it around. Yeah, it costs money. Did I want to spend it? No. But it wasn't the end of the world. Nobody in my family died. I didn't die. I still have my children. I still have my husband. We still have a home. And look at the things that you do have that you are grateful for, and turn those positives into upgraded word choices. And then S, surrender the outcome. Do all that you can do in the most positive way, and let the universe take care of the rest. We cannot control what happens outside of us, period. But we are in absolute control, if we choose to take it, of how we respond.
Exactly.
Versus react. Take that moment, take that breath, catch your breath, upgrade everything inside you and outside of you that you possibly can, and surrender the rest to a universe that's listening.
Right.
And it sounds kind of crazy, but it's crazy cool because it works.
It works.
So
That's right. I love that. I really love that, what you're saying, because when you do surrender, right, the subconscious says, oh man, I don't have to work so hard, right? And
Exactly.
and it's so awesome, because a lot of people don't like that word surrender, because they make it sound like, oh, I'm giving up. Now we're going to go through that whole scenario. If I give up, I'm a failure. It's like, don't go down that road. I wrote a book several years ago, Which Side of the Fence Are You On? And it's the world of duality. So when you're talking about changing those words, and those thought processings, how do you do that? It's like, take a look at what exactly it is that you're commenting here. What would be the complete opposite? And the dictionary is really good at that. It'll give you the opposite. All you gotta do is go to Google and say, what is the opposite of this emotion? What is the opposite of this word? And it'll give you an opportunity to start shifting some of those, because sometimes we're so engrossed in the destruction that we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, because the fear is, if I get to that light, it's going to be a train head on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And fear, our family loves to watch The Family Feud. And so, we've asked 100 people. And so I asked 100 people what fear meant to them.
Uh-huh.
And I had some really, really fascinating answers. But the most common answer is the most common acronym, which I actually use in my book, which is false evidence appearing real.
Right.
And then early this year, in April, I believe, I learned from Joseph McClendon III. He is a phenomenal speaker. He's a phenomenal coach. He's a ball of energy, that guy. Let me tell you, whoo! Sit in a room with him for a minute and you'll be on fire. You won't even know what your problem is, because you're just going to go get to work. He's fantastic. And he does a lot of work with the psyche mind and how we reprogram it. And his acronym for fear is called face emotion and replace it.
Oh,
so
wow, I like that.
Yeah, so he shared, if somebody's afraid of a dog, what do you think's going to be in my office when they get there?
Oh, a dog, eh?
A dog. I said, oh, I won't tell him I'm afraid of spiders. I don't want to write that rodeo. I don't want to. We just get the hairspray and the flame. I got up. But so and the face emotion and replace is very similar to one of the tools that we learn in DBT. And DBT, just so you know, dialectical behavioral therapy, is different than cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not necessarily about behaviors, although it's coupled. It's about regulating emotion. And when we can't regulate our emotions, that's when fear really settles in.
Exactly.
That's when anxiety really settles in. That's when anger and acting out really starts to happen. And so face emotion and replace is very similar to action opposite emotion. For example, if a client or a patient is dealing with severe depression, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't feel like it. I'm sad. I'm depressed. I don't have any money. I am out of alcohol. I ran out of my smokes. I don't have any more weed because it's legal in a lot of states.
Right.
And I know it's huge in Washington. So,
and it's huge. It's huge here in Colorado
and the list
too.
of why we don't get out of bed just goes on and on and on. And
Which then justifies right? It
it
justifies.
justifies the
to be
emotion
able to
of
stay
why
there.
everything is so bad. And so
Yeah.
it's like, well, okay, so you're out of smokes, you're out of booze, you're out of bucks, you're out of a job, you don't have any reason to get out of bed, but you do.
Yeah.
Because abundance is out there. We just have to choose to accept it. And I know that sounds crazy too, but it's crazy cool because it works. So
Yeah.
so in opposite action, opposite emotion would be like, I just don't see a reason to get out of bed today. I don't see a reason to curl my hair. I don't see a reason to put my makeup on. I don't see a reason to try to get a job because it's not going to help me get caught up anyway. I'm so far behind. Well, that's not necessarily true, because a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And so if you're feeling, if anybody out there listening is like, these are all the reasons that I'm not getting out of bed today, I would challenge them to do some face emotion and replace it, or action opposite emotion, and say, you know what? I don't know why I'm going to get out of bed today, but I'm going to get out of bed today. And I'm going to get dressed. I'm not just going to put my yoga pants on. Yoga pants and pajamas. That's been like the wardrobe of 2020, right? Just put your blouse on for your Zoom. You're still wearing your slippers.
I guess that's one fact, because I do shows every day, right? It's like, so.
I did put pants on and I'm not wearing your slippers. So, but my point is, I would challenge your listeners or your viewers to just take one step.
Once it all begins, like you said, the journey begins with one step forward, and that moves you into becoming that best you. Every morning that I wake up, I say to myself, what am I going to do today that I didn't do yesterday that will make me a better me today?
Absolutely. And we're going to get up and take that one step. And you know what? If that one step forward ends up taking you 2 steps back, it's all right. It's called a dance.
Yes.
It's called a dance. So turn the music up and take the steps, whether they're forward or backwards or a little to the side. You can decide whether it's a 2-step or a waltz or an all-out let's get her done line dance, and just go for it, because life is a dance.
It is a dance.
It changes. The background track is never the same every day. So, and if you look at my speaker sheet or anything else, you'll see music everywhere, because I'm a musician. I use music in healing, and it's really, really powerful. So just remember that the background track is going to change from day to day, but you get to choose the music.
And you get to choose what track you're on. And every day you get a different track, because they'll take you to a different adventure, right? and I love the fact that you said music, because music is dear to my heart as well. And music is actually the healing, from the universe. All vibration. We live in a vibrational world. Each one has its own sound. And if we listen for it, it creates magic. So all right, I have a reason to get out of bed. I don't know what it is. Go downstairs, turn on a funny movie, right? That'll help bring things up. Turn on whatever your favorite music is and have a dance with yourself. If you have your kids there, just pull them off the chair and start dancing with them. Start singing. You're going to uplift the energy all around you and with the people around you. Just do something wild and crazy that you would never do before, right? Just get up on the table and do a table dance,
It's so true. My daughter and I just did that the other day. We actually were given a challenge, but we got all dolled up. We had our bathrobes on. We put bright red lipstick on, and she had a unicorn headband with a floral lei, and I had a green glittery what are those hats called, fedora, and we just were crazy, and we had crazy hair, and we did a little lip sync video to Meghan Trainor's I Love Me. and it was so much fun. We had to do it like 3 or 4 times to get it right, because we kept forgetting the words or the props, and we were just sweating because we were wearing our heavy bathrobes, but it was so much fun. Right. And so in every day there are bad moments, but the day in and of itself is a joy. Right. Because if we're on this side of the oxygen tank,
I always say, if I'm on this side of the daisies, that's a good thing, right?
Yes, if we're on this side, we're taking in oxygen.
There you go.
We're putting our feet on the floor. Get to that point. I read somewhere one time where she got up, and the moment her feet hit the floor, the devil said, "Oh crap, she's awake." So be that person. Be that person that puts fear in fear. Right. Because you're not afraid of it anymore. Because you're going to be willing to say, you know what? Get behind me, fear.
Yeah, the greatest fear is fear itself. And
I have things to do. I have places to go,
right.
People to meet, and a difference to make. And we've all been blessed with gifts that will bless this world and help to heal it. So
yeah, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing this story, of where you were to where you are and to where you're headed, because it's really been empowering, listening to you share that story. And I like, it's like here you were trying to suck the oxygen out of yourself, and now you're using that analogy. Hey, I'm waking up on this side of the oxygen tank, rah rah for me, right?
Yes.
And I think that is so beautiful, because it really shows a very strong message that you can do whatever you choose to do, and it's choice. We live in this duality world of choice. We have automatic responses, action and reaction. If you just pause for 1 second when someone trips a trigger in you and you want to go on that automatic pilot reaction, like you said, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute, Houston, what's the norm? Yeah, this is how I would respond. It's like, I'm going to throw everybody off target, because a lot of times people push your buttons because they want that response, because it's going to manipulate you into, right, getting to do what they want you to do and how they want you to perform. Well, if you stop, take a breath, move to that opposite, you're going to throw them for a loop, and they're going to like, who is this person? It's like, what did you just say? Right?
Yes.
And then it starts to be fun, because they're going to try to trip you continuously, and if you don't fall on that trip, because now you're aware Houston has got this personality trait that is continuous, automatic, to start shifting, you are going to have so much fun, because nobody's going to trip you up, including yourself, in that self-sabotage. And that's another whole show, right?
It is. We could probably talk about that too.
Yes, we could. We could go on for hours and hours, but the message you shared here today, I want to thank you so much for being here on the show, and we definitely will get you back on, and talk a little more in depth on some of these other things. So, if you liked what Jennifer had to say here today, then comment below. Reach out. Her name's going to be up here somewhere, right? Get her book. Show your book one more time. Tell people how you can, get that book, how they can find you.
My book can be found at my website. It's Jennifer Jerald, both with J's.com. And you click on my book, and it'll take you to my book link.
Wow, Jennifer, that would be great. So go ahead, share your offer with the audience. This is going to be exciting.
Well, I do want to say thank you, Beverly, for having me on your show. And just as a reminder to all of your listeners, my name is Jennifer Jerald, and I am a transformational confidence coach focusing on turning fear into focus. And I am excited to be able to share with your listeners today a free PDF of the 5 focus steps with a
nice.
It's a full color PDF, and that is absolutely free. But just because they took the time to come and listen to our show today with you, I'm also going to include a 30-minute discovery call with me, which is a $75 value, also absolutely free, just because they took the time to sit down and listen to the message and hopefully be inspired and lifted. And if they want to know more, they can have their focus PDF, and they can have 30 minutes with me valued at $75 for absolutely free, just because they came today.
Wow.
And they can connect with me for both the PDF and their discovery call at jenniferjerald.com.
Oh, thank you so much. That was very generous of you. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that are going to really enjoy that, because, you know, it's a start, you know, and we all have to start somewhere. And when you start making those little baby steps, pretty soon they start to get bigger. Then they get to be gigantuan, and then you're just off to the races, right? You know, but you have to
Before you know it, you've finished your marathon.
There you
and you're
go.
ready to start the next one.
That's right. And don't let the 2020 keep you in prison.